Hello, I'm Paula and welcome to Paula Live. And today we have a very distinguished guest. His name is Dr. Morando Soffritti. He is an amazing scientist. He's done many years, I believe almost 14 years of work on just aspartame alone. I'd like to read you just a small bit about him, tell you something about Dr. Soffritti. Dr. Morando Soffritti, MD, is a scientific director of the European Foundation of Oncology and Environmental Services over in Ramazzini in Bologna, Italy, where one of the world's largest and longest existing programs of carcinogenicity bioassays is conducted. His research is oriented toward the identification of the causes, particularly those of industrial and environmental origin. At the European Ramazzini Foundation Cesare Maltoni Cancer Research Center, Dr. Soffritti has designed and directed long-term carcinogenicity bioassays to study dozens of compounds and agents, including formaldehyde, gasoline oxygenated surfaces, pesticides, ionizing radiation, and, of course, aspartame. He's currently conducting mega experiments on electromagnetic fields originating from electricity and mobile telephones. Dr. Soffritti's work also includes the evaluation of substances that can be effectively used in cancer prevention, and particularly for memory cancer. Dr. Soffritti holds degrees in medicine and surgery from the University of Bologna. In 1977, he specialized in gastrology and began his postgraduate training as a visiting fellow at the Royal Free Hospital of London. From 1979 to 1981, he worked as a visiting scientist at the National Institute of Environmental Health Services. That was in USA, and in 1984, he completed an additional specialization in oncology. Dr. Soffritti is the author of more than 150 publications and serves as an expert for working groups at the International Agency for Research on Cancer in Lyon, France, and collaborates with the National Toxicology Commission of the Italian National Institute of Health. He is a teacher of industrial and environmental carcinogenesis for the specialization schools of oncology at the universities of Turin and Bologna. He is responsible for the scientific direction of the mortality register with particular regard to cancer-related deaths of the province of Bologna and 18 other areas in Italy. It's managed by European Ramazzini Foundation. In 2001, Dr. Soffritti was nominated Secretary General of Ramazzini in an international academy of 180 experts in occupational health and environmental medicine from over 30 different countries. The man knows his stuff. Hello, I have Dr. Soffritti on the line. Hello, Dr. Soffritti.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. I'm so excited that you came to talk with us here, and you do so many amazing things. And you guys, you're our heroes. You're saving lives with the work you do. And it's not only good work, but not only just the work is good, but the way you go about it and you treat the animals and all is just wonderful. And a lot of places are doing very good work, but some people peek in and go, oh my gosh. But the way you treat your animals and things is just lovely. Are you still, let's see, that would make it 14 years working on aspartame. Are you still doing those experiments?
Not now. We just ended to elaborate the last study, which was conducted on mice. We already published the data, and they confirmed also the carcinogenicity in mice as it has been on rats, and that it was the third experimental study The first two were on rats, starting the treatment at 6 weeks of age, anti-spontaneous death of all animals. It was an experiment of more than 1,800 rats. In that experiment, as you may know, we have shown that aspartame in feed, administered in feed, is inducing significant dose-related increased incidence of lymphoma and leukemias in females, and also in females is inducing carcinomas of kidney pelvis, and in males we have shown that is producing dose-related increasing of malignant schwannomas of peripheral nerves, cranial peripheral nerves. That it was the result of the first experiment. After that, we performed a second experiment in which the treatment started from prenatal life until spontaneous death. And this second study on rats confirmed the dose-related significant increased incidence of lymphoma and leukemias in females, and the incidence compared to the first study, it was higher. And also, we have observed a significant increase of lymphoma and leukemias also in males, and mammary cancer in females. That it is what we have found, and what is important to note is that that type of tumor, we observed a significant increase of lymphoma and leukemias also at those levels to which maybe people could be allowed to be exposed, because we found at 20 milligram per kilogram body weight still increased incidence of lymphoma and leukemias. And 20 milligram per kilogram body weight is just half of the admitted daily dose for people.
I think so too. When I looked at the doses, I know several people that take in way more than that, way more than the rats are getting. And that's a scary thought. Think of the studies, you did over 30,000 slides. This was very in depth. Was it at least 7 years you conducted these studies? This wasn't like the 2-year study done by the actual manufacturer themselves.
We started the experiment, the treatment of the animal at the end of 1997. And we published the first data in July 2005. So it took us more than almost 7 years to obtain the results of the first experiment, which it was, as I said before, of more than 1,800 animals, which it means to screen more or less 30,000 slides.
Where I'd gotten that information about 30,000 was back in 2012, so it's actually over 50,000. And the reason I bring this up, I want the listeners to know just how much work this went into. This was very, very meticulously looked at by the scientists at Ramazzini. Am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yes, Ramazzini is correct. You know who was Ramazzini?
Sorry?
Do you know who was Ramazzini?
No, I don't.
Ramazzini, he was a physician born in at the end of the 17th century, and he has been considered the founder of occupational medicine. He made the statement that it's better to prevent disease than cure.
The National Health Federation, I don't know if you're familiar with them. I just absolutely love that organization. Needs to adopt that. That's what they try to get out there. It's better to prevent. And if the FDA is going to continue to allow this in the state, there's over 6,000 products on the market and more coming out that contain this aspartame. And I see little children with a Mountain Dew, a Coke, or a Pepsi, and it used to not affect me, but I cannot look at Dr. Soffritti's studies and not think that this child is sitting there with poison, and I feel like I want to go knock it out of their hand. This is very serious. This is one chemical. If you come in contact, please, the food that you buy and even the food that you give to the shelters, make sure that this poison's not in it. I'm sorry?
You know, as you said, aspartame is present in more than 6,000 products. Among them, you must consider that more than 500 products are drugs, mainly used for pediatric drugs.
Oh, no.
Which it means that for children, which it means that as commonly it is known, children and childbearing women are the major consumers of aspartame.
That's a scary thought. I have a special needs son, my youngest severely autistic, and in my opinion, was damaged by vaccines. And he's 10 years old, and I will not give him pharmaceutical drugs. He hasn't had one. I didn't know anything about the vaccine scare until it happened to us and our family, and that's what made me stop and look at every single thing that's been offered to me. We were conditioned as children. The doctor was the man that knew everything. If he told you to take this drug, this is what you needed to do. And in this day and age, I've learned to question and look at the drug myself. I don't want to damage this child further. And he goes to school with children that are similar to him, that are on Risperdal and other things. Some of them look like they're staring into space. And there's never been any studies on children and the effects of this drug on them, but they're prescribing it like candy. To me, it's a big horror. And to think we would give them these drugs with these side effects and this food with this aspartame, it really concerns me. And that's why I think it's very important to get your studies out there.
Yeah, and then after these two studies performed on rats, we started a third study, on which we treated again aspartame in the feed, and the species was mice. Again, they were treated since prenatal life until spontaneous death, and what we found was that in mice, aspartame in feed induce significant dose-related increase of hepatocarcinomas and adenocarcinomas of the lung in males. So at the end of our studies, we can say that aspartame induces significant increase of malignant tumors, both in males and females, and in both species, rat and mice, which it means that aspartame is a multi-species, multi-organ carcinogenic agent.
Very dangerous poison. I was looking at a few things, and I heard it mention that aspartame is a GMO product that is actually genetically engineered bacteria feces. Is that true?
No, for what I know, aspartame was synthesized at the end of 1960 at the GD Seal Company in Chicago, and it was discovered by chance because the chemist who was working on that molecule, it was looking for anti-gastrinic product, and just occasionally he found that it was a very sweet product, and so company moved from drug as anti-gastrinic product drug, moved to new artificial sweetener, which of course was much more profitable economically.
Thank you for explaining that to us. I feel so bad when profit comes before human kindness.
That's true. I agree with you.
Again, thank you so much. You do so many experiments: formaldehyde, gasoline oxygenated additives you study, pesticides, ionizing radiations, and
Yes,
experiments on electromagnetic fields originating from electricity and mobile telephones.
yes, yes, that's true. We did. Our laboratory started its activity 40 years ago, and the first results of our at that time experiments was to show the carcinogenic activity of vinyl chloride, which is a chemical monomer used to produce plastic, specifically polyvinyl chloride. And at that time, we have shown that vinyl chloride produce various types of tumors, and specifically hemangiosarcoma of the liver and many other vessels. And what we found that our discovery at that time induced to decrease the exposure of workers in the petrochemical industry to vinyl chloride, and the concentration, which was more than 500 ppm, fell down to 1 ppm as regulated by agency all around the world.
That's again some very scary findings. And
We found after that experiment, we tested many other compounds. Up to now, we tested more than 200 agents, physical and chemical agents, and we published the data of almost 110 products. And among them, we have shown the carcinogenicity of benzene for the first time. It has been shown by our laboratory. We have shown the carcinogenicity of formaldehyde, and more recently of methanol, of MTBE, which is an oxygenated additive of gasolines, and also several types of gasoline and other product for engine, like kerosene, naphtha, and so on. All these type studies, it is interesting to note that have been tested for the first time by our laboratory. And after our examination, other laboratories followed to test the same compounds. But for the first time, our laboratory tested them.
You mentioned methanol, and that's one of the effects of aspartame, and I want to make sure I have it clear that the methanol from the aspartame, it's not circulating in the blood, but it metabolizes in the intestine, and then the methanol is metabolized in the liver.
That's correct. That's correct.
And that is a very significant process right there that shows exactly how this aspartame affects you and exactly what's going on, I guess, inside.
Yes, that it is the effect that methanol is metabolized in the 2-formaldehyde in the liver can make can arise the hypothesis that in mice where we found hepatocarcinoma of the liver, formaldehyde could be responsible of induce that type of tumor in mice, maybe.
Does our bodies make a type of methanol? And I'm sure that they're metabolized. No, I'm not sure. I'm thinking that a natural occurring methanol would be a whole different thing than this chemically induced methanol.
Methanol is also a natural chemical product, which is present in our body. But one thing is if you metabolize methanol without exceeding the concentration of methanol in our body. When it happens that you have an increase, a quick increase of the assumption of product containing methanol, you may have possible local toxic effects, which it can be less easier when the concentration of methanol in our body is much lesser.
Oh, so if I understand it, we're able to tolerate a certain amount, but this added methanol it makes it toxic. It becomes more toxic, as if like for people out there, if you just took too much medicine, you're going to get a toxic effect than a regular dose. And I hate to use that as an analogy, but so it actually builds up more, and it's not the fact that we don't have methanol, it's that we're raising it to a toxic level by adding the aspartame to our diets.
For instance, yes. Also, another situation in which you can be exposed to methanol can be vapor of methanol used as gasoline, for instance, or additive of gasoline, or other type of exposure. Consider that the production of methanol in the world is right now more than 20 million tons a year. So
Wow.
there are many situations in which people can be exposed to methanol.
So that even in my mind, just the levels are getting more and more toxic as these things are introduced to us. And I sure hope if they're not going to get rid of aspartame and other carcinogenic carcinogens in our food, medicines, and things, they really need to put it on a label that everyone can understand. When they make the choice to put that in their body, they make the choice not from a really cute commercial they see on TV, but an informative choice by understanding what these chemicals can do to you. It's
Yeah,
very important because people see cancer is on the rise, and you're looking at so many different ways to actually push it in yourself. If you just cannot blindly go in and pick up anything. People think the FDA has their best interest at heart, and it was set up for that reason, but it doesn't work that way. And we all have to take responsibilities for ourselves and our family. And even if the FDA says it's safe, check out what Ramzini has to say in their studies over in Italy, and look up what you can find. It's very important. It may seem like a six pack of Coca-Cola or Pepsi to you, but it could mean thousands and thousands of dollars in medical expense later in a shorter lifespan. My goodness, I was going to ask a question there. Oh, I would like to point out that the studies that Dr. Soffritti does with the rats are very humane. The rats get to live their entire life. They die of natural death. No one kills them to get these slides in this data. It's a pretty good life for a rat when you compare it in the wild. So, um,
Of course, and if you compare the life of mice and rats in our laboratory, what with the type quality of life they could make experience in houses and apartments when they play with children, and uh, maybe sometime during the summertime, instead to take care of the rat and mice, most of the time they kill him, waiting for the autumn to start again. Our rats and mice are eating very balanced feed. They every day drink fresh water. They are cleaned. Their bedding. So it is a quality of life very very quiet for them. In fact, when you clean the cages and you put your hands near the rats and mice, they run around, they go throughout your hand, they are very, very, very quiet.
I've
If it
seen
means
pictures of you holding one in front of them. Beautiful, clean areas for them to live. It looks like a little sanctuary for them. So I feel like they have a wonderful life. Plus, do any ever become pets? Any one or two ever just grab your attention?
what did you say?
Any one of the mice or rats, do you ever get one or two that grabs your attention and becomes a pet, more like a pet?
No, 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 no. I don't get in love to my rats and mice.
That that's the quality I have. I grew up on a farm, and I had the larger quantity of animals, the easier it was to only pick a couple out to be friends with, because we all know, even though they're having a wonderful life, that they have their purpose for us too. I mentioned formaldehyde earlier, and I did a paper a long time back, but I could remember finding formaldehyde everywhere I turned. It's emitted from a fire in the fireplace or a campfire. It's emitted from wood products. It's a coating on your pills to make your medicine go down. And it is very toxic in itself. And your studies have proven that as well.
Yes, we studied formaldehyde. It was around 1985, and we tested formaldehyde in administered in drinking water, and we have shown at that time that formaldehyde administered through water produce lymphoma and leukemias in male and females, which is confirming that other products who are metabolized at the end to formaldehyde, as methanol, as aspartame, as MTBE, also produce lymphoma and leukemias. So it must be a link between all these agents inducing lymphoma and leukemias in animals, in rats and mice. Must be a link with the characteristic and peculiarity of formaldehyde.
Once anyone gets to looking at all these dangerous chemicals around, it sure makes you, hopefully it wakes people up and gets them more alert. And we're all responsible for our own health. And like Dr. Soffritti says, prevention is worth way more than getting sick, and just throwing your luck to the cards and seeing what happens to you.
I think so.
If you try and eat healthy, try to stay away from genetically modified foods and products, you're going to do so much better. If you stay away from, in the county I live in Florida, we just got rid of the fluoride in the water system here.
Yeah.
There's a dentist trying to get it back in. I don't know what's up with him, but I hope that other counties follow suit and take the fluoride out. And just everywhere we look, from the foods we eat, the drugs we take, the water we drink can be very toxic.
Not everything is toxic, depending, of course, on the amount. But also, not every chemical agent or physical agent are carcinogenic. As I told you before, we tested almost 200 chemical and physical agents, and we elaborated the data of 100, more or less, compounds. And among them, we have shown the carcinogenicity of no more than 45–50% of the agents, which it means that there are also agents which, administered to animals for all life, doesn't induce cancer. And that is very important to note, because if our studies on experimental animals, rat and mice, could induce cancer for all types of chemical or physical agents, it means that our test, our experimental tool are not very much useful for public health, because it should be considered not so much specific. And for this reason, we are considering that long-term bioassays are very useful to evaluate the carcinogenic risk, mainly to predict potential carcinogenic risk. And for this reason, we are saying that for each new agent, new compound, before to be commercialized, it should be much better to test the potential carcinogenic effect, which it means to evaluate its safety after lifespan exposure.
Absolutely. I know if I were the CEO of one of these chemical companies, I would be very interested in your work, and it would pay to use the chemicals that turned out to be safe. And even in their advertising, I believe it sets people's mind at ease to know that this has been studied, watching the effects. So they really should pay attention to Dr. Soffritti's work over there. And if you want to have a profit, Mr. Pharmacy, do it with a good heart and conscience, and take a look at these studies and go from there. As you just said, there are safe ones. I think I tend to get so caught up in the things that aren't safe. When I wasn't a mother, it didn't seem to matter so much, but once I had little children that were dependent on me for what they ate and drank, I find it matters quite a bit.
Yeah, I think so. But there is one more question which I would like to arise, is that also industry perform this type of experiment, but the difference between industry experiment and independent institute experiment performed by independent institute like Ramazzini is, it is that we publish our data, and we allow also to agency to come to visit our institute and to review the slides and to review the protocols, to review our archives. The same thing doesn't happen in industry laboratory. They keep everything secret. They do not allow people to go in and to review the slides, the protocol, to verify as experiment has been conducted, and so and so and so. And that is not very good for the for public health, because the result of scientific work must be published to the people, to allow people, to scientists, to verify the quality of the study which has been performed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you guys out there want to look at any of these studies, is there a place that they can go online, Dr. Soffritti, and take a look?
Yes, they can ask, they can request to us, and as we did very recently, somebody came and came to review our data. For instance, concerning aspartame, the experiment which have been performed by us were performed by industry in the 70s of the past century. But they never published the data until only now. They put online the result of their studies because it was strongly be requested by European Agency for the Safety of Food. And when we examined their data, we found how poor job they performed 40 years ago. And so it is very important to make the study and also to allow people, agency, to come to visit and to review the data, but not now happen.
Yes, those earlier studies I think you were talking about were 1973 to 74 and 1981.
Yes. But no, in particular the studies of 73 and 74.
I see.
And the study on 81, it was partially published, just the brain tumors. The brain were published, the data of the brain, and not of the other tissues.
It must be just amazing to do this kind of work. The rest of this world really should think about some of the things that others do. You save lives, and all you do is go to work every day. And the reason I say save lives is when people get your information, they're better informed. And I love that it's all public. And when a place like the Ramazzini Institute does their studies and invites people in and shares their research, you know everything is above board. But it makes you wonder when somebody does something in secret and does not publish and give someone else a chance to see if they can match the study or come up with different results. Then it kind of, that secretive thing is it makes it even worse, because I know my imagination can go wild. But I think for one reason they had hid that study was because of how inadequate it was. And the scientists there could look at that themselves and see that it wasn't any match for what was going on over at the Ramazzini Institute.
You know, what they do is they cover the result of the study, and when, as happened with us, new data are published. What they do, it is not to compare the results, to review results, to allow people to review their results. But what they do, it is to attack the scientists more than what they attack the results of the study. They attack the scientists who produce that results. And it is what happened with aspartame with us. For 2, 3, 4 years, continuously they criticize, to use an euphemism, our study, and so that is what never should be done.
That really gets to me because when I see them going to attack, I feel like they're running scared, and they're doing everything they can to use the mainstream media to put a doubt in someone's mind. And again, Ramazzini Institute shares the information. One thing, when they do their studies, you're invited in, nothing's hidden. So they may influence somebody who's watching TV or picked up the paper. They call you controversial only because they're scared, basically.
Yes, and they scared, and for that they pay so-called other scientists to write paper, to make interview by try television, to write newspaper, discrediting the scientists who perform the study on which they shown that the existence of risks.
And listeners, please, I know most of you are awake and know that just because the mainstream media says something does not make it true. And there's a lot of money tied up in this. And to the makers of aspartame, you can bet that that money is way more important than human life. And it's an evil thing in my heart to continue to make this and manufacture this and put it out for people to consume. And it's evil to attack somebody who's doing legitimate studies just because of a dime. They're going to lose some money. Not a dime. It's quite a bit. I'm sure it's in the billions of dollars that this chemical is making for them.
That's true. It is very important to resist to the attacks of the industry, and I understand that it is very difficult. For instance, for scientists from the university, because they survive because of grants they receive from government, from industry. That didn't happen to us because our institute is supported by funds raised by thousands of people who are guaranteed to us enough resources to conduct our studies. And so also if we are attacked, we can still survive.
Absolutely. It doesn't take but the truth. You don't have to remember anything. You don't have to make up anything. All you have to do is tell the truth, and that's what they do over there. And the more this gets out, the safer we'll be. May I ask you about the work that you did with the electromagnetic fields from the mobile phones? I'm very interested in the safety of mobile phones. Having them close to us and in our pocket and on our face.
Mobile phone is working throughout non-ionizing radiation, which it means electromagnetic fields of, radio frequency electromagnetic fields. Radio frequency electromagnetic fields can be far electromagnetic fields, which it means are at a distance from your body, or near magnetic fields, which it means that they are next to your body, in particular your head. What we have studied, what we are studying now are the far electromagnetic fields, which it means the electromagnetic fields generated by the radio station base. You know what I mean?
Yes, sir.
Station radio, I don't know, station radio base, which are the antenna which is making possible the transmission of the voice of people. And what we want to study also, it is electromagnetic field generated by the antenna of the cellular phone. And this is an experiment which we are planning to start very soon.
Oh, I'll be so interested in finding out what you discover there. Someone asked me on the chat line about Splenda's ingredient sucralose in sweet low, and says, do sucralose and aspartame have the same carcinogenic effect? And he also wants to know, what is their chemical molecular similarity or difference?
We started the experiment on sucralose on mice. We ended the biophase, and also we ended the elaboration of the data. And maybe in a few weeks we are going to submit the paper to a scientific journal. And also we performed that study on mice. Also, we are planning to start in a short time a second experiment on sucralose on rats. Why we studied? We wanted to study sucralose. We wanted to study sucralose because for its chemical characteristics. You know, sucralose is sucrose with where three molecules, oxidrylic molecule, have been substituted with chlorine, which it means, to give you an idea, chlorine plus carbon, which it means organochloride, are type of chemical agents similar to DDT, dieldrin, dioxin. They are that type category of that type of that type, and so we were interested not only to find to study another important artificial sweetener, but our attention was attracted also by the fact that it is a type of chemical compound with some risky characteristic. And so we did that study on mice, and we want to do that on also on rats.
I'm going to be so interested, and I'm going to be haunting that Ramazzini Institute, watching for these studies and seeing how things come out. Again, it's just so amazing to speak with you and all your people working on all of this stuff. It's just incredible. I have a 13-year-old son who wants to be a scientist, and I'm very proud of him. And I did not let him miss school for the show today, but it is being recorded, so he will get to hear it anyway. He is a big fan of yours and hopes to follow in your footsteps one day. He's very interested in cause and effect and finding out why things happen the way they do. So I just want to let you know there's probably millions of little boys and girls looking up to you and waiting for these studies and waiting to see, follow and see if they can duplicate or add to when their generation comes forward. You're really an inspiration to so many.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll go for a short break, and we'll be right back. Buongiorno, and we are back with Dr. Soffritti from coming live from Italy. He's been, if you're just tuning in, he's been talking to us about the lab there and the effects of aspartame and the studies that he has done over the years. Thank you so much, Dr. Soffritti, for joining us again.
Buongiorno, and thank you also.
Is there any thing that's come out lately in your studies that you could share with us that's exciting or interesting to know in any study that you're doing?
We published recently a study in which we tested the dust collected during the disaster of the Twin Towers in New York in 2001. Maybe you know that Environmental Protection Agency at that time collected dust from the building destroyed, and a colleague, American colleague, provided us a sample of that dust, which we instilled in the trachea of several, many 100 rats, male and 100 females. And what we found, first result we found, it is that we observed some very few malignant tumor of the lung, not significantly increased, but very unusual in our strain, which it means biologically that we cannot to take in consideration that results. And also, it was a type of tumor which in other sites, in other organs, commonly is induced by chemical agents. And so that allow us to make an hypothesis that in that dust were present also chemical agents which are able to induce some type of cancer. And that is an interesting observation. We have to complete the study to evaluate also all the other tissues and organs, which will be done in some few months.
Absolutely. I don't know if there's a number of people, but I'm sure it's quite a large number that were exposed to breathing that during the collapse, especially the businesses in the area and the guys, the police department, fire department, New York's finest out there. Some of them did have masks and things on, but a lot of them were exposed to it. And just what I saw on television, it was very thick for them to be breathing that. It must have been very uncomfortable for a long period of time. So would love to see that they didn't get enough to actually cause anything extra to happen that wasn't happening already in their body.
What I mean it is that exposure to that dust can induce some long-term effects, which is not only distress of the lung, but also can be also potentially increase the risk of malignant tumors. But what I told it is just first results. The study must be still completed. The evaluation still must be complete, and we will do that in a few months.
Absolutely. I'm going to pay attention to it, and I'd love to broadcast your findings and let the listeners know what happens there. That's so very important, and I sure do hope the insurance companies or these people's medical will help them out that had to, in order to save lives or just breathe air, breathe that stuff in when those buildings collapsed. And it makes me wonder too, Dr. Soffritti, because they do controlled demolition on old buildings, and they do this in a city area. So similar particles will be released in the air when these types of buildings go down. So it's not only important in that you're doing this from 9/11, but for the demolition type of thing, because in Vegas they take a building down right next to where everybody's walking around and
Yeah,
erect
yes.
another one.
But we must consider also the workers who are doing that type of demolition. Several times happened that in that building are used in the past a big amount of fibers, for instance, asbestos cement. And so in the dust can be contaminated by asbestos fiber, and they breathe that type of dust, and they, of course, may be exposed to a higher risk to develop cancer related to asbestos exposure, like lung tumor or mesothelioma or so on.
Would I be correct in pointing out that if someone is healthy, you don't smoke, and you eat right and exercise, your body is going to be slower to react to something like that? And the reason I ask is my father worked for the railroad, and he was exposed to asbestos there. And I know there's lots of lawsuits from that awful stuff, but he will be 91 next month. He never smoked, he never drank. We ate what grew on the farm, and he didn't drink soft drinks. He drank water or milk. And I attribute that to the man standing next to him that is lying in the bed with a machine to breathe, and they breathe the same air. I attribute that to his good health.
I think you are right. Good lifestyles, it is important also to have a good life, a healthy life. But most of the time is not sufficient. It must be clear that if you work in the farm, you must you must not exaggerate in the use of pesticides, of other chemicals, and in that sense, the life can be longer. But if you are a farmer, smoking, drinking wine or alcohol, and so certainly it can be hurt your health, And as you said, your father is over 91 years of age, and he was a very person, very conservative, no exaggeration, drinking, in eat, good exercise, physical exercise. So for sure it helped a lot. But sometimes it's not sufficient.
Sometimes it doesn't make a difference at all.
Yes, you can be a person who never smoked, who never drink it, who never not obesity, but if you work in a petrochemical company, if you work in the building construction, sometime you can get very sick.
A friend of mine that has passed away since, her name was Judith Bluestone, and her father was one of the, he was a chemist at one of the Monsanto places. He worked on 6 of the deadly dozen chemicals, and that must have been back in the 50s, or maybe even earlier. I'm not sure about the dates. But back then, we didn't know what we do now. She said her father would come home still in his lab coat. He used experimental pesticides around the house. When she was born, she had so many deformities. I recently saw a picture of children affected in the Agent Orange area. She looked just like those children when she was born. And wow. I know now that even scientists that have to work under these toxic conditions know now how to better keep from bringing that home. This lady was very intelligent. She ended up doing many things in her life for special needs children, and went through a lot, and she attributes her father's work to her condition. And I wondered if she was alive today and saw the picture of the children in the area that were born in the area that Agent Orange was used. If she saw that, she would know that she was absolutely right about that.
Yeah.
It's very important to be careful what pesticides you use in your home and on your garden. Do you do different studies on pesticides as well?
Yes, we performed, we tested several pesticides, in particular one which is called Mancozeb, which is a fungicide, which it was produced by, I don't know now, but it was produced by Rumen Dash company, chemical company. And we found that are induced several types of tumors, like tumors of the thyroid and also lymphoma and leukemias. And again, not all pesticides are carcinogenic. We found three other pesticides which we tested, which were not carcinogenic, And so what should be done is that to separate what is carcinogenic from what is not carcinogenic, and try to use among them the much safer compound. And that never happened first because when companies sell their product, they don't say, take this because it's not carcinogenic. They say, everything is safe for them. And so, difficult situation for farmers.
Yes, it is. Could you tell me which chemicals offhand were safe, which pesticides?
I don't remember exactly now, but it was two types of one fungicide and two insecticide. I am talking about almost 40 years ago.
Ah, I see. I'm sorry to ask. And we could go to the Ramazzini Institute and probably find that information.
I don't think so. Which is, I don't remember. You can look for it.
That'll give me something to do this weekend. I'll be looking for it because it's very interesting, and I'd love to share that information. And listeners, you have to realize that this institute does so many studies, and these studies, some of them are new and some of them have been going on for years. They're very extensive, and so unless I warned him and had him pull papers out, it's very hard to pull a lot of stuff from memory. So I'll do my research and see if I can find something like that to share.
Okay.
What brought you into your line of work?
What?
How did you come to be a scientist? What made you, as a young man, decide this is the field that you wanted to take?
I started my career like a gastroenterologist, doing clinical work in the hospital. And after 4 or 5 years, I decided that the best for me could be to change my career from clinical physician to research physician, research physician, and so I looked around, and I went to the Oncology Institute of my town, where there was at that time a small laboratory, and then my mentor sent me for 2 years in North Carolina, the National Environmental Health Institute in Raleigh, and I spent there 2 years, just when they started the program of the National Toxicology Program. So I learned many things, and then when I came back, I continued my research in my laboratory, and now our laboratory became a huge laboratory, as you can understand, for have been said in our conversation.
Yes, I've been told it's one of the most impressive laboratories on this planet in this world. Again, so happy to have your work going on there. When your gastro work, you're also a surgeon. Am I
Not
correct?
a surgeon, clinical gastroenterologist, which it means. My major field it was to work on liver diseases, chronic liver diseases. That it was my main interest, clinical interest.
You have over 150 publications.
Maybe a bit more.
Yes, I know. That's probably, yeah, that's why I had to say over 150. Take a look, people. He has some amazing things out there. He has different books, all this research. Take a look. You're going to be fascinated at the life of Dr. Soffritti and what he's covered in a lifetime. It's just so very impressive to have a mind like that working for us.
I can tell you that I have been a little bit lucky, because I found I did interesting research. I work in a very interesting laboratory. Our laboratory is in an old castle of the 15th century. Wow. And it is of 10,000 square meters, huge laboratory. Almost 20 people are working with us, and not always happen to the majority of scientists. If you go around the United States, the majority of my colleagues are working in a small lab, small studio, and so, which is totally different for me. And so I consider myself very lucky.
I see. I'm so glad you are. If someone were to take a trip to Italy, could they call the Institute and just a regular like family and visit the lab, or take some kind of tour of this amazing building?
Yes. If they advise me, we can arrange a visit of our lab.
I know that the president of the National Health Federation goes to Italy now and then, and I'm going to mention that to him. I know he would just be so excited to get to come in, and so I'll pass that along.
Tell him to come to visit us.
It'd be just an amazing experience for me to be able to take my son and have an appointment to see that, especially as far as he wants to go in science. He'd sit there with his mouth open and his eyes wide.
Yes.
You're going to talk to the Dr. Soffritti. Oh my God, I can't go to school today. So I have to keep that in my plans. You mentioned the small labs around the U.S. that you stay in contact with. Do you have them other parts of the world as well?
I am the general secretary of the Collegium Ramazzini, and the Collegium Ramazzini is a network of scientists precisely 180 scientists from 34 countries in the world, and we meet in Bologna each year, almost 60, 70 colleagues. And so this allow me to be in contact with many colleagues from all the world. And I got the chance to visit their country, their laboratory. For instance, in March, we will hold a conference in Armenia, to Yerevan in Armenia, and it will give us the opportunity to exchange evaluation opinions and to discover many aspects of different countries. And so we have several contacts with the laboratory and the scientists all around the world.
That's amazing. You guys get to share information. You're also, in doing that networking, you're also you can test each other's research openly and discuss your findings, or not over test something. If you see out of the 30, 15 are working on something, maybe you want to use your facilities and your knowledge to test in a different direction, and wait to see what another one comes up for. So it is very interesting, and it's very important to share this information.
Yes, that's true.
That's why when the manufacturers of these different things, they close their studies, and don't give you an opportunity. That's where you start to think something is coming up, something is wrong, when there's something they don't want us to know in that.
And what is important also, it is that the members of the Collegium Ramazzini are all independent scientists, which it means they are very much committed to public health, to safeguard of the environment, and so on. We are a very good group of people.
There's ethical questions on different places testing their own things as well, because they do have an interest in the outcome of these tests. And that sets up the opportunity for someone to push a test into the direction they want to see the results of.
Yeah.
I noticed, I'm looking for the matter. I watched taping from a conference you did. It was a seminar. ALDE, capital ALDE. It was back in 2012, so I'm not expecting you to remember that. But some of the answers, and as you can tell, I'm not a scientist and I'm not up on all the terms and all, but I could easily understand your research and finding the way you presented it. And next, a few other people spoke. One of them was a representative from the candy industry. And this was on aspartame, this seminar, I'm sorry. And another was from the manufacturer as well. Was even with my little knowledge of science, and I could easily understand that what they were doing were blowing a big smoke screen over your work at that seminar.
Which seminar you are talking about?
It's a piece from ALDE. It's capital letters. It's probably an acronym for something. ALDE. And someone videotaped that seminar. It was in 2012, I believe, in Belgium. And they put it on the internet, and just about anyone on YouTube that sees that, you don't have to have any scientific knowledge at all to follow. I'm sorry?
It was a conference held in London?
I think it said Belgium. I would have to pull it back up to be sure.
Belgium.
You were given the effects on aspartame. At that point, you'd only had 30,000 only. You had a number of 30,000 slides, and you spoke about the in-house tests that were doing their that had completed their studies 73 and 74 that they were not releasing at that time for anyone to look at. And so that's kind of where we were in 2012 during that seminar. But I'd love to, after the show, I'll share it. And I'd like you to listen to Dr. Soffritti explain the research there. It's very easy to understand. And I'd also like you to listen to the responses and see for yourself. I know on YouTube, the general consensus there is aspartame is dangerous. 99.9% of the comments there were saluting Dr. Soffritti's work and learned something very valuable. So if you like, I can share that with Eric. I bet you'd take one look at a couple of seconds of the video and you'd remember that being there. They were the candy manufacturer, the representative for the candy manufacturers. He was kind of comical in a sense. You could tell he was really upset after you gave your findings. He was very upset.
Interesting.
Until, yes, I'll share that with Erica so you can make the decision when you have the time to look. But it was kind of comical because he wanted to throw around a bunch of meaningless phrases and stomp his foot there to try to draw attention away from the facts that were presented. It was very interesting to see the way the tactics that are used to discredit an honest work or to cause doubt in the people listening. But it was so obvious that they were using those type of tactics that it made the study even more influential, if that's possible.
Yeah, it can be.
Is that the hardest anyone has ever come at the work that you've done with aspartame, or is anything else that you're working on so sensitive to millions of dollars that they've decided to try to refute evidence there?
We did in the past study on MTBE, which is an oxygenated additive of gasoline. And we have shown, again, because MTBE is at the end metabolized to formaldehyde, we have shown that a significant increase in incidence of leukemias. And also after that result, we had attack from petrol industry, which still lasted today, you know. The results we published in middle of 90, and after 20 years they are still fighting with us on that.
I recently interviewed Dr. Hans Kugler. I don't know if you're aware of him or not, but he has his own lab, and he's done some work on his own heart. He's working just privately with his own interest at this time. It's anti-aging, I believe. He's in his 80s, very healthy, doing amazing work over there. He's in California, I believe, here in the States. But so many people are so familiar with you, or getting so familiar with you, they feel as if they know you from your work. The compound that you were talking about, where can we find that? I'm sorry, the GM?
Which is MTBE, which
Yes.
means methyl terbutyl ether.
And where would we come in contact with that?
Because it's added to the gasoline. When lead was taken out from gasoline, it was substituted by MTBE, which have the same finality. to increase to enhance the octane property of the gasoline, you know.
Yes.
And so they take out lead because when they substitute in the car the catalytic of the combustion of the machine, they couldn't work with lead, and so they substitute lead with MTBE. And we studied that compound, and we, as I said, we have shown that it's carcinogenic.
Now, when they substituted it for the lead, they were actually trying to do something good.
Yes, but
and
again,
inadvertently it didn't work out that way.
no, because they didn't test it before to use it, and they make the same mistake again and again.
Exactly. So in trying to correct one thing, not sufficiently testing the other, didn't get them anywhere.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I know I've heard that the old catalytic converters.
Yes.
I recently heard that those really didn't do the job that they're supposed to do or were marketed to do.
Yes.
It'd be nice to know if they were honestly trying to correct that situation and find ways to make it safer.
Yeah.
But I guess that's what you guys are going to push to happen. And the work you've done, you've had to take some knocks for it. You've stood your ground. You bring about honest truth, honest work. Invite anyone to visit, duplicate it, and when that many people are knocking on your door to try to discredit you, they're losing money, and you're making a world of difference.
Yeah.
Because if people weren't paying attention, they could not care less. So the more they knock and hound you, the better you could feel about your work.
Yes.
Well, I know you're busy there in the lab, and you've got a lot going on. I see people running every once in a while back there. And if there isn't anything else you'd like to share, could you summarize a bit on aspartame for us?
I can tell you that we wanted to test aspartame because we considered the experiment performed before by industry producing aspartame. We consider that experiment inadequate. And after we started our studies in 97, testing on aspartame on rats. Aspartame was administered throughout the feed, and the first experiment was performed on 1800 rats, and we have shown that the major effect, carcinogenic effect of aspartame, were lymphoma and leukemias in females. We repeated the study on a second study on rats, starting the experiment, the treatment from prenatal life, and we have shown an increased effect of leukemogenic of the lymphoma and leukemias. And finally, in a third experiment, we wanted to test it in another species, which was mice. Again, starting the treatment from prenatal life and lasting for all life. And we have shown that in mice, aspartame produce lung and liver carcinomas in males. Based on these results, we claimed that aspartame is carcinogenic chemical compounds in experimental animals. And based on this, we recommended the agency, Food and Drug Administration in the United States, and the European Food Safety Authority in Europe to review the regulation of the use of this artificial sweetener.
Thank you so much. And again, we so appreciate you coming out, and I'm going to let you go. Thank you so much. It's been an honor to talk to you. And please keep up the good work.
I thank you very much, and for the very nice conversation we had.
That was Dr. Morando Soffritti.